Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. I see lots of people here from all over the world. I just want to say hello. Pardon my horrible accent and the languages I don't know. I see Russia and Ukraine, so I guess it's a privyet. Uh, I see people from other France, I think, salut, and people from other countries, salam. I think that's right. So I just want to thank all of you for coming here. And just to give you a very brief background about me and what I do in Logs.io. My first career, I was a journalist in Boston. Actually, I covered local government, politics, things that were nothing about marketing at all. But then when the economy went down and I was laid off, I went into marketing and advertising and found my way into SEO and digital marketing. And I've spoken at various conferences and given some webinars because as a former journalist, I still like to report on our industry in order to help marketers do our jobs better. So that's why it's my pleasure to present to all of you today. And thank you again for coming. Where I work now, I'm director of Marcom for Logs.io. It is a analytics company. Our software analyzes server log files for SEO, as well as application log files, network log files, and other types of log files for DevOps engineers and sysadmins and other types of people. But enough about me. You didn't come here for me. So let's go right into ad fraud. 6.3 billion. Now, just so you know, all the sources I'm going to be citing are linked here in the slides, and I can send you more, and there's a slide with resources as well at the end. So you can always click on these links to find more information on all of these stats. Okay, great. So 6.3 billion. In the Western world, $6.3 billion of advertising um, spend is lost every year to ad fraud. And most people don't know about it because most people don't know what an impression is and what the implications of what an impression is for everyone who does online advertising. So the story begins with what is an impression, and we'll go from there. Okay, so what is an impression? If you do online advertising for yourself or clients, most people think that one impression is one person viewing an advertisement one time. That is completely not accurate and not true. An impression, by definition, is a web browser telling an ad network to serve an ad. That's it. To serve an ad one time. Every time it's one machine talking to another machine. And what that means is that human beings have nothing to do with it at all. So when you're reporting, say, an ad campaign had 100,000 impressions, that was a web browser asking an ad network 100,000 times for an ad. Human beings do not play a role in this at all. And this is a very important thing to understand because when humans are not involved and only machines are involved, then that leaves the door open to a lot of ad fraud. And the rest of this webinar will go into what that is and how you can avoid it. Now, this is the key. Most impressions, as I've described them, are never seen by human beings. Now, what is the exact percentage? The honest answer is I can't really tell you because every ad network is different. Every study is different. You'll see these numbers here. Some say 20%, some say 54%, some even go as high as 85%. But the actual percentage depends on the country, on the ad network, and on the organization that is doing the study. But what it comes down to in the end is that a lot of ad impressions that you are paying for are not being seen by human beings. Different studies will give you a different number, but in the end, it's going to be always going to be a lot. But that's not the end of the story. There's more. If there are any Americans here, I think you will get that reference. Okay, so this is why many ad impressions are never seen by human beings. There are three main reasons. First, ad network failure. If your web browser tells an ad network, give me an ad, and something goes wrong with the ad network, either it doesn't load an ad or it fails to load an ad, you are still charged for that impression because the web browser made the request for an ad. So even though the ad was never delivered, you're still paying for it. Bot traffic. This is huge. There was a major study done last year in a US publication in The Atlantic that said 60% of all internet traffic is bots. Now, what is a bot? I'm sure most of you know as well as I do. A bot is basically a robot that crawls the internet, serving up web pages, registering accounts, trying to make spam comments. You know, a bot can do many, many different things. But what they all have in common is that when a bot goes to a website and loads a page for any purpose, that page loading is serving an impression because whenever a page is loaded, that makes a request from the ad network to serve an ad. So even though it's a robot on the website getting that impression, not a human being, you're still paying for that ad. Publisher fraud. This study in Adweek, which is one of the biggest publications in America for advertising, so that 25% of the entire online advertising market is fraudulent. That means essentially it's BS, to be a little less polite about it, and it comes for many reasons, including bots. So one, a lot of online publishers do dirty tricks in order to try and maximize revenue from ad networks. Call it black hat on online advertising, if you will. So one, sometimes they will create an ad unit that is only 1 by 1 size in pixels. So what that means is, if you go to their website, you will never see the ad because it's only 1 by 1 in size, but it still loads. It makes that impression. So whoever is paying for that ad is being deceived. This is fraud because they are paying for that ad impression even though the web visitor is not seeing it, has no chance to see the ad. And that's the only one way. Another way is to, if you think about it in 3D, is to stack on top of each other ad units so that the web visitor will only see the unit on top and all of the units below it, it could be 1,000, who knows, it could be 100,000, will still fire and make an impression, but they will never be seen. And a lot of another sleazy way to try and maximize ad revenue is that sometimes a website will redirect a visitor to a page that they don't want to visit, a landing page, a pop-up, something, again, just to get another impression. Even though a human being is seeing that impression, it's still fraudulent in my opinion, because they are being misdirected. It's misdirection, which is one element of the definition of fraud. And here's another example. So, why are publishers doing this? I mean, obviously they want to make a lot of money, but and here's how they do it. Here's an example, and it's an example of alleged collusion between online publishers and ad networks. Here's one example that you will see in this link study. A website publisher will pay an ad network $0.002 for a visit from a bot. And ad networks knowingly will sell this traffic. And then, so when the bot arrives at the website, the bot fires the ad unit to get an impression, and that ad impression gets him 0.0025 to $0.004 dollars in ad revenue. Now, if you know accounting or finance, you'll see that is a 25 to 100% profit margin for doing nothing, for using robots to manipulate and deceive advertisers, people like we marketers who are paid money for ad impressions. Think about the implications of this. So bottom line, you take into account ad networks failing or making mistakes or not loading in ads. You take into account bot traffic. You take into account, excuse me, publisher fraud. Now, in the end, bottom line, because of all of these things, you run the numbers, only 8% of online display ads even have the chance to be seen by human beings. 8%. Think about that. Again, but wait, there's more. Again, Americans will get this. I don't know if you guys get the reference. So here's the thing. Only 8% of online display ad impressions have the chance to be seen. But wait, there's more. So think about ad units that appear below the fold or in website footers. Website visitors who don't scroll down, who don't see those ads, you're still paying for them because those are ad impressions. The browser asked the ad network to send an ad was delivered, and even though that human traffic visited the website, that human person never saw the ad. But you're still paying for it because the ad fired. Doesn't that sound crazy? And here's the more part. There is a journalist will tell you that this is off the record. When you talk to media buyers, to ad networks, to people in the online ad industry, they will only tell you this off the record. It's very rare someone will tell you this on the record and give you names. But essentially, here's what is happening. A media buyer, this is like, say you're a client and you want to run a huge online display campaign. Sometimes you'll go to a media buyer who will negotiate with the ad networks and give them money and they'll buy traffic. They want these outlets at these prices. They're the middleman who gets the ads for the clients. They're called media buyers. So what happens sometimes is if a media buyer spends $1 million of client money with an ad network, the ad network will take $200,000 of that and redirect it to a corporate sibling of the media agency for some BS like giving a presentation. So what happens is the media buyers and the media agencies will not spend the client's money in the best way for the client, what will get the most results. The media agencies are spending this money on the ad networks that will give them money back. They call it volume incentives. If you give us a lot of business, we'll give you a cut. This is what they call it, but it's also called a kickback, which is fraud and collusion. So, again, bottom line, what I've just gone through, what's going on in summary. Clients give money to media agencies to buy ads. The agencies give money to the ad networks. The ad networks give some money back to the agencies, but the client's display ads are only 8% viewable. But the other 92% of the impressions are still making money for the publishers and the ad networks and the media agencies. Who's getting screwed? The advertisers, people like us. Sorry for my language, but I'm very passionate about this issue. Now, obviously, this could not go on for so long without no one hearing about it. I'm not breaking this story to you right now. A lot of people are starting to write about this more and more often. It's not an exclusive. I'm not the first person by any stretch of the imagination. So what's going on? So this year, in just the United States, 25 billion in online ad spend is being under review. What does that mean? CMOs are taking a look at all of the money they're spending on display ads and thinking, you know, maybe we will get a better ROI by spending that money elsewhere. And think about the implications. If a lot of that ad spend goes somewhere else, what happens to Facebook? What happens to Google AdWords? What happens to countless and countless websites, news publishers that depend on advertising? The implications are enormous. Now, the ad networks are responding because, if nobody wants to advertise with them, they go bankrupt. Facebook would go bankrupt. Google would go bankrupt. So Google, and you can see these links here later, has deployed something called Active View, which is a way to increase viewability of their ads, specifically in a way where advertisers pay only when their ads are viewable. Now, what is viewable? That's a moving definition. If you ask 5 people what is viewability, you'll get 5 different answers. Because how do you measure it? How does Google really know if I'm going to a website or if it's a bot going to a website? I mean, sure, you can look at the user behavior of the visitor, and you can tell sometimes whether it's a bot or a real person, but not all the time. And what about if an ad loads, like I said, below the fold of a page? I'm a human being visiting the site, but I never actually see the ad. What about that? Facebook is working on something similar. You can see the link here. Now, again, just in the United States, to give you an example, there is an organization called the Interactive Advertising Bureau. There's probably something similar in a lot of your countries as well. And their goal is for the entire online advertising industry to fight to reach a goal of 70% viewability. What this means is that their goal is for 70% of all online display ads, excuse me, impressions, are viewed by human beings. But here's the catch. If we can even if online advertisers can even reach that and get that as a response, should online advertisers accept the fact that 30% of their ad spend is completely wasted from the start? Think about that. If I spend $100 on an ad, knowing that $30 is already going to be flushed down the digital toilet, will I still spend that $100? Would you? This is a question that people like us, online marketers and advertisers, are going to have to answer. Now, my resources at the end of the presentation will have more, but I want to give you some basic examples on how to protect yourself. First off, I do not understand why anybody today is running CPM ad campaigns. I really don't. The knowledge is out there. I'm not the only one talking about this, but the quickest way to lose money in in digital marketing is to run a CPM campaign. Don't do it. Do not do it unless this whole ad fraud issue can somehow be corrected, and I'm not sure it ever will. Okay, now secondly, revise your analytics in human terms. Here's a really quick example I'll just walk through with you. If you spend $10,000 and you get 100,000 impressions, that's, excuse me, a cost per impression of 10 cents. Now, when you assume the viewability is 100%, that every ad is being seen by a human being, then what I call real CPI is still 10 cents. Now, take into account what I've just told you. Again, same spend, $10,000, 100,000 impressions at a CPI of 10 cents. When the viewability goes down to 8%, which is the best estimate I've seen so far in display ads, the real CPI jumps to $1.25. That means you are really actually paying $1.25 to reach a real person. Now, is that ROI acceptable to you? Is that good? I can't answer that. Obviously, only you can answer that. But that's one thing I would do to keep in mind. Now, there's also a lot of bad things going on in terms of clicks. There's always been click fraud in AdWords. Google is trying to fight that, but nothing is 100% perfect. So I would also revise your metrics in CPC campaigns. Say, for example, your estimate of click fraud is 25%. Then use these same calculations and use these same corrections to adjust your cost per click to reflect human terms. And do this for all of your metrics in online advertising. And again, I know there are some people here from Ukraine. Anton, I'm very sorry. This wasn't intentional. This is what the data shows at the moment. But one recommendation is to block certain countries from your display ad campaigns. This study here in Adweek showed that the top 3 countries in the world in terms of fraudulent traffic bots are China, Venezuela, and Ukraine. Again, everyone, I'm sorry if you are in the Ukraine right now. Just for comparison purposes, in the United States, 43% of online traffic is fraudulent. It goes up from there to, again, China having 92%. So block these countries from your ad campaigns unless, obviously, you have to sell there. Okay, so I've compiled a list of resources, and I can email this to anyone. Send me a tweet, send me an email, and I'll send you this deck if you want. Um, this slide here. Okay, so these are some of the best resources I've seen on the internet. The first one is an article I wrote on Moz that goes into much more in depth on this issue. This article by Bloomberg is also very good. Another from Marketing Land. If you like online advertising, follow this guy called Bob Hoffman. He's an American. He's a retired advertising agency CEO. You know, probably 50, 60 years old, maybe more. He's a genius, and his thoughts on online ads are, again, they're contrarian. They'll make you think, but he's really good. I would follow his blog as well. Okay, so, all right, so I'm reaching the 25-minute mark. I believe we had 30 minutes. So I guess, Anton, if you want, I can leave it open for another 5 minutes or so for Q&A if anybody has any questions. So I guess if you do have questions, just write in the
You can talk for 30 minutes or even more if you want, and after that is question time, but never mind. There are some questions you can, but you have to read them out loud for record purposes, if you don't mind, okay? So there are some questions over there, just read.
Okay, 1 second. Nice to meet you, Kanwal. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Let's see. Is it more or less a problem or gap in technology implementation and development stuff? Why don't you file a feature request to the to W3C? Oh, that's a very good question. Basically, well, the gap is that the technology hasn't, how can I explain this? The technology hasn't advanced enough. I'm not sure it ever will, because if I publish an ad in a newspaper, I can go buy that newspaper and see, did the ad run? You know, is it possible to be viewed? Is it viewable by human beings? You know, or was there a mistake in the print of the ad? I can actually see it. But if I'm using AdWords and I'm running ads on a bunch of sites in Russia and Britain and America, and I'm in Tel Aviv here in Israel, I have no way to know how and whether my ads are being seen. All I can trust is the data from the ad network itself. And you know, I'm not here to bash Google, but they're not certainly unbiased. You know, obviously they want to show you good data because they want to keep you as a customer, but that's all the data we have. So again, the technology hasn't caught up, and I'm not convinced it's possible to catch up. Maybe I'm wrong. That this is just my opinion. Are these stats also prevalent for mobile platforms? Very good question. The data that I've seen, most of it reflects display. I'm sorry, not mobile display. Sorry, desktop computers. I get my words mixed up sometimes. But there's also similar data out there. And I'll tell you, I'm less of an expert on the mobile side of things, but I can definitely find that data. Mobile has its own problems as far as viewability and ad blocking. As you may have seen, the most popular apps after Apple released the iOS 9 were ad blocking and content blocking apps, because people hate seeing ads on mobile devices because of all of the scripts, of all of the tracking platforms and mechanisms. Like, here's an example. If you run ad block and you go to a huge site, like say the New York Times or fart.com, it's a funny news aggregation site, or maybe the BBC, or basically any site whose revenue depends on advertising. If you go to those sites and you look and you check all the scripts that AdBlock is blocking, it can be like 40, 50, 60, 70 scripts. And that's crazy. And nobody wants to see that, especially on mobile devices, because when people are on mobile devices, they want everything right now. And plus, whenever my mobile browser runs a script, I'm paying for that with my data plan. Because if it's taking a couple kilobytes If it's taking a couple kilobytes of my data plan to run your bloody script, then that's money out of my pocket for ads that I don't want to see. So I'm going to block that, especially on mobile. Mobile is going to present a problem. And I'll tell you why. For digital advertisers, I'm sorry, for ad networks, you might be killing your own industry. And I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but that's what I believe. Because if every time I go to a website, I have to block 70 scripts or more, and I'm paying for that, and I'm seeing all this outbrain, sorry, crap at the end of articles on 6 ways to lose fat with this diet, and these clickbait headlines, which I hate, I block all of that too. I mean, the more annoying your advertising is, then you only have yourself to blame when people block you. This is the problem that I think is going to be facing the online ad industry in the next month, in the next few months, or the next few years. Um, and again, online ad networks only have themselves to blame for the bots and the spam and the tracking, the taking our personal data, for collusion and the fraud and all of this. So I'm sorry I went on a rant just now, but I'm pretty passionate about this issue. So let me see what the next topic was. Okay, so hold on. People want me to leave my Facebook and Skype. Okay, give me 1 second. Where is it? I have to find the link. Do. Okay, sorry, 1 second. I'm going to another window just to find the link so I can post it for you.
Yeah, while Sam is looking for his whatever he is looking for, Facebook and Skype. Anybody's still using Skype, by the way. I forgot when last time I did. I don't know. I remember I was doing Q&A with Barry Schwartz, and we've done it over the Skype. Fantastic. Yeah, you have another question. You missed it. Alexander asked you what language better to use for advertising campaign, US or UK English, actually. We know English has a plenty of version.
Right.
It's not exactly about ad fraud, but yeah, well, you're a SEO expert and not only ad fraud expert. So, would you answer this question to Alexander? But you can still give us these links. Yeah, links are there. Kanwal Tariq,
Right.
it's Sam is all yours now.
Okay, great. So one thing about my Skype, I don't make my Skype public. Obviously, all of you I trust completely. I just get so much spam on Skype. I'm really sorry. So I only give out my Skype after I've talked with people one-on-one. So email me, shoot me a Facebook message. All of my contact details, Facebook, Twitter, email, all that, it's on my personal website. Very easy to see. So just go there and you can find 20 ways to contact me. Um, okay, so about UK versus US English. My rule of thumb in all of marketing is you go where your audience lies and you speak to your audience in the way that makes sense to them. So if you are advertising to people in the UK, use UK English. If you're advertising to people in the US, use US English. But now here's where it gets interesting. A lot of times, me and other people, we've run ad campaigns in English targeting other countries, which is interesting because in my industry at Logs.io, actually everyone here in our Tel Aviv office talks in English. We work type in English. So everyone is very good in English. And because we're actually like the coders and the programmers and the DevOps people, they're so used to coding and typing in English all the time. So actually it would be good to target them in English as well. It just depends on the industry. It depends on the context. There is no good rule of thumb. Um, by default, target people in their native language and in their native dialect, English, English, or American English, but only use English to people in non-English speaking countries if you have a very good reason, like you want to target Americans living in Spain or Americans living in Ukraine, or something like this. It just depends on who your target audience is. Um, okay. Those are the questions I have for now. Does anybody have any more?
More questions? Um, no more questions. I want to ask you a question. Obviously, I wouldn't be running CPM campaign, no way. But what about pay-per-click? Nowadays, a robot they can click, can they?
The last I've heard, click fraud, CPC-based click fraud, is still going on. I'm actually more an expert on the display CPM side of things, but I'm sure there's still click fraud going on. It's less than in the past, from what I remember. I don't have the concrete data, but it's not that hard to find. You can just Google, CPC click fraud stats, 2005, something like this. But personally, my favorite campaigns are CPA campaigns, cost per action. Take, for example, you only pay when a visitor does something, like buy a product, submit a contact form, something like this. My preferred method is to use ad networks for those purposes
Yeah,
because,
I guess. Yeah, I guess Facebook would be or Google would be extremely difficult to persuade. So I'll pay Facebook only if they buy my product. Otherwise, everybody will advertise. So it's kind of conflict of interest.
exactly.
Okay.
And
Uh, yeah, yeah. Go on.
Oh, sure. And actually, I find just CPA campaigns, they're called cost per action, for people who don't know what that means. I find them, it's a lot harder to, I'm sorry, to do BS with CPA campaigns. It's a lot harder uh, to um, to do fraud in a CPA campaign because it's easy for a bot to pull up a display ad. It's a little hard. It's harder for a bot to do massive click fraud. It's really hard for a bot to submit a contact form as long as you have your security protocols in place. It's a lot harder for a bot to go to Amazon and buy a book, or watch a TV show on Amazon Prime then it's hard for a bot to do that. So that's why I would base your campaigns on CPA.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not. I haven't heard about CPA campaign on Facebook or somebody else. Maybe some much smaller advertisers.
Oh,
Uh,
right.
well,
Oh, yes. Facebook, I think, doesn't do. Oh, I don't remember. I haven't done a Facebook campaign for about a year, so it may have changed. So I don't really remember off the top of my head.
okay. Tell us who
Facebook,
does it.
actually, CPA campaigns. All the major ad networks will do CPA campaigns. Like any. Here's the gist of it. Any good ad network, sound up. Okay.
He asks you to speak up, to put your
Okay.
sound up, so
Is this better, everybody?
you can adjust it on the left. Yeah, he
Okay.
says okay, so it's
Yeah.
on the side okay.
Great. Okay, where's I going with that? Okay, so basically, any reputable ad network will offer you a CPA option. If they don't, do not use them. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
So,
Alexander is persuading with his question about UK American English, saying if audience
mhm.
is global. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add. Yeah, Alexander,
Oh,
it's very
sure.
difficult to say, but yeah, okay, Sam, any
Okay.
last thoughts
Oh,
about American versus English
oh
and
yes. Okay.
versus
This
British?
this goes into technical SEO, on what's called international SEO. If you Google international SEO guide, I think there'll be a guide on my website that will come up like third or fourth. Sorry, I don't mean to advertise my own stuff, but yeah, sure. I can talk about this too if people are interested. So basically, you want to segment your website by targeting different languages and countries in either subdomains or subdirectories. Here's an example off the top of my head. Say that your website targets people in Britain and France. Then what you want to do is you have two options. Well, you would probably put all of your root domain, like widgets.com, on in either the British site or the French site. What you would do is put all of your English language content on, like a UK subdomain, like uk.widgets.com, or a subdirectory like widgets.com/UK, for example. And there are a lot of protocols in your metadata where you can tell Google to redirect website visitors to one of those sites or the other based on the language of their browser. So you can tell Google with your technical SEO tags, if the person's browser is in French, automatically direct him to the French site, or if the person's browser is in English, direct him to the UK site. Again, this is a very basic example. It can get very complicated, because if you have a country where people speak more than one language, like for you guys and gals in Ukraine, you have Ukrainian speakers and Russian speakers. What you can do, for example, is to a website can target Ukraine as a whole on a subdomain, and then on that subdomain target Ukrainian speakers in a subdirectory and Russian speakers in a different subdirectory. As you can probably tell, it can get very, very complicated based on your demographic targets. It's basically structuring your website in a way where different parts of the website target different people in different areas and different languages, and then using technical SEO to make sure Google understands that fact and Google when they crawl your website. Again, this is a very basic introduction to international SEO. You can Google it. You can find some guides by me, by Alida Solis, if you know her, by Gian Luca. I forget how to pronounce his name. He's a big Moz SEO guy in Italy or Spain, something like this. So you can just Google
Gianluca
international SEO
Firelli.
guide. Sorry?
Gianluca Firelli,
Ah,
yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah. Yeah, he's
yes.
Italian living in Valencia, so you were kind of right saying Italian or Spanish. Yeah, Omar
Right,
Khan, are you
exactly.
here? I, I didn't notice the kind of ghost visitor. Oh, no, I can see you now. Sam, Omar Khan is here. Say hello to you, I guess. Okay.
Umar, hello. Hi. If looks
Uh,
like you are, I don't know that flag, so I'll just say hello.
it's Dubai, Arab Emirates.
Dubai. So salam,
And
I hope.
yeah, okay. I guess you know him personally, but never
No,
mind.
I don't.
Uh, yeah, okay, guys. Do we have more questions? Do we have
Feel
more
free to
questions
ask.
for
Uh, Feel free to ask me
sure?
anything. I'm not busy at the moment. I have about online advertising, SEO, heck, journalism, my old career when I was a reporter back in the day. Whatever. I'm here to help you guys.
Guys, more questions? Seems to be we running out of questions. Thank you very much for very interesting conversation, very interesting presentation. Yeah, Sam,
Thank you, and,
you.
and for everybody here in Ukraine or Russia, I hope I'm saying it right. I just want to say spasiba for having me. Sorry, I hope that's
Yeah,
right.
yes, that's right. That's very nice of you. Okay, thanks for coming in. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you and goodbye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.